Well, what the president laid out at the State of the Union is a vision of the world where government can solve all of your problems. And that is just not the case. When you rely on government to solve problems, you end up with a $17 trillion debt. And you burdensome regulations, the healthcare system is not working. Over 30 years ago, Ronald Reagan stood up for the American people and proclaimed that he's found the problem, and the problem is government. This economy is recovering at the slowest recovery rate in modern history. There were more people who left the workforce last month than people who got a job. And the president's policies, particularly the health care bill, they're not serving to improve this economy. There's a burden on the economy. And what he laid out really doesn't reverse that. And he says that he's going to use his executive authority to implement whatever he wants to implement and bypass Congress, which violates every concept of the founding fathers when they put this nation together. They didn't want a king, and they didn't want an imperial presidency, and that's why we have a government of three branches that have checks and balances. And the president, after 5 years, steadfastly refuses to adhere to the Constitution and the way the founding fathers set up the system. So, I anticipate that we'll have clashes all year over these things. It's unfortunate, but we will be rolling out some alternatives to the health care system, the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare. You can expect those in the coming weeks, and that'll inspire some good debate. We'll keep hammering away. For me, I keep looking at every bill that comes across my desk and looking at, does this increase spending? Does it increase our debt? If it does, I'm standing against it. I voted against the budget, which busted the budget cap the last Congress had put into place. Unfortunately, I didn't have a majority of colleagues that joined me. So we're increasing the debt and increasing spending, trying to steadfastly adhere against increasing spending.
I follow what you do as far as how your votes are going, and you're very quick to share your thoughts and beliefs, not only with North Carolinians, but everyone across the nation. But when you have a president who says, hey, I've got a pen, I can essentially do what I want, and he's doing that by increasing minimum wage for federal contract workers to $10.10, and this has not been approved by Congress. He's not following the three levels of government or the three stages of government. You've got to feel frustrated that it doesn't matter at this point in time what you do up there.
Well, it is frustrating, but we've got a few tricks up our sleeve that I think you'll see be deployed, whether it is you going to the courts, seeking protection through the courts. That's the third branch. There are three branches, and if the executive branch is trying to circumvent the legislative branch, it will go to the third branch, the judiciary, and try to stop him there. We'll continue to have oversight and continue to expose these abuses of executive authority. And there's some other ideas. In fact, over the next couple of days, we're going to be conferencing amongst ourselves to look at some opportunities for trying to check the executive abuses of power.
At this point in time, checks and balances are of utmost importance, because when you have this occurring, no matter how the debate goes or how the votes go, and then this sort of thing keeps happening, it's a very scary situation when you sit back as just a normal, everyday resident back here in Wayne County going, what?
Right. And it's not only domestic policy where I think the president has gone astray. On foreign policy, I think there's a successful foreign policy, in my mind, is when your friends trust you and your enemies fear you. Speaking about the Iran nuclear deal, it just encapsulates the failure of Obama's foreign policy of putting America in a position of retreat rather than being a leader on the world stage. He spoke about the Iran nuclear deal last night, but what he failed to say, and it's the most important part, is that this nuclear deal does nothing to prevent Iran from enriching uranium in the future. It doesn't dismantle the centrifuges, and the thought of having an Iran with a nuclear weapon is unthinkable. This is one of the largest state sponsors of terrorism in the world. They sponsor Hezbollah. They vow on a daily basis to kill Americans and to obliterate Israel. It's a bad deal, and there's strong, and people talk about in Washington how the two parties can't work together. Well, on this, there is strong bipartisan support in Congress, in the House, and the Senate to not only prevent a deal of this nature, but in actuality to increase the sanctions on Iran, because we all see, what a danger, clear and present danger Iran with the nuclear weapon happened presents. So why the president is doing this just baffles me. And out of all the mistakes that this president has made and all the misguided policies that this president has implemented and pursued over the past 5 years, this really ranks up there as one of the worst.
As he was giving his address and spoke on the Iran situation and the nuclear arming of Iran, how big a shock was it as all of you were sitting there listening to this?
We know what he's doing. He's not making a secret of what he's doing. I think what was most telling is the House chamber was almost silent as he was speaking until he got to the very end and says, having a nuclear Iran is a bad thing. I mean, we all agree on that, but how we get there is where we disagree. But the House chamber on both sides of the aisle sat there and just kind of stared at him. And I think that was a very telling moment that the president does not have much support on a bipartisan basis for this deal that he's trying to negotiate with Iran.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch exactly what occurs over the next few days, not only with what you guys have planned, but how he responds.